doing today? Welcome to the Empire Builders MasterCast. I'm Lucas. I help people, nonfiction authors, create courses from their books. And this is Honoree Quarter. Honoree, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. I am fantastic. And I help aspiring authors become authors. I help them to write, publish, and monetize their books.
That's right. I wouldn't be sitting here talking about books if it wasn't for exactly that.
How cool is that?
It's great.
That's so cool. Yeah.
It's great.
Because now you have courses and books and books and
Yes.
courses and consulting and coaching. And what else do you have? You have things.
Oh my gosh, all the things.
You have all the things. Yes. Yes.
And a new thing maybe ready to announce very soon for the ebook market.
I'll pretend like I don't know anything about it. Do I get to be one of the ebooks? Do my books get to be some of the ebooks?
That's a good question.
Not for me, is it?
Well, I haven't explicitly stated that it's not. So I'm trying to be, so this is a good lesson for anyone starting a business. If you're going to niche down, you're going to commit to niching down. It's hard to expand away from that niche and keep the people that came to you when you were niched satisfied if it's a platform
right
where everyone comes together to do something, which is different than if it's just general, like writing, like we could write different genres and so what?
You know what the saying is, right?
What's that?
You get rich in a niche, especially.
Oh yeah, the riches are in the niches.
Yeah, always makes more than a generalist.
Yeah, so I was originally niching into the speculative fiction, but I have, and that's in my mind, but in my site, I have not stated any niche yet in the build. So,
well, I'm not going to write horror,
but
I am working on a thriller.
So thrillers, fantasy,
mystery.
Yes. Mystery, absolutely.
So mystery, suspense, thriller.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
It's all there.
Noted.
Do
you note anything different since our last conversation?
I do. I wonder if anyone else does. You guys throw the chat if you guys notice something different about Honoree's background, perhaps.
My brother made an observation and I went, hold my beer. My non-alcoholic beer that's actually hot tea.
I was about to say, I'd like to see your beer first before I can hold your beer.
I like a ginger, right? As long as it's not alcoholic, I like a ginger beer. I always think beer tastes terrible. And Byron just shakes his head at me because whether I drink, Jack Daniels or Weller, I'm always like, it tastes like jet fuel. And he's like, it's not the same. We had some vanilla bourbon at dinner the other night. And I took a sip of it and I was like, oh, hair on my chest, right? So.
Imagine it's still bourbon.
Yes. Hey, Justin, how did I do? Is this better? I believe his words were something along the lines of, you kind of look like a low budget side hustle part-timer. And I was like, wow, I think that's much more hard. He did not say it that harshly because he is my big brother and he loves me. But I was like, you're not wrong. He's not wrong. And the sad thing is, the sad/awesome thing is I've just published my 4th client book of the year this past Monday. And so I'm going to grab one. So this is the marked up version, but this is Beth's book that just came out on Monday. So it's the 4th book I published this year for a client, and I've done 2 of my own. All of that to say, I might have been a little busy, and I had decided to do a gallery of some of my book covers because I'm not going to do all of them. That would be, I don't have enough wall space to do.
There aren't enough walls in this house.
There aren't enough walls in this little shack that we live in to put all the books. But I had gotten some picture frames with this idea in mind, not knowing how it would look. So this is my experiment. And if for some reason one of them falls off the wall while we're talking, they may or may not be up with thumbtacks, because I'm not the person, right, that would be hanging them on nails. But when I decide to do something, I just do it. And so I was like, we are not having another. And so next week it should look exactly like this, or it will look completely different because I will have 12 of them.
Oh.
So I have chosen 12 books to hang on the wall. So I have 6 more frames that do not have the book covers inside of them.
Nice.
So that was it was kind of a fun project. And this thing that you see right here is my printer. It is quite something, like the size of a small vehicle. So
the Volkswagen.
It's a Volkswagen. For Halloween, it's a printer. So anyway, that was my project, was to get that up and to see how it looks. So
it looks great. You surprised me when we came on camera earlier.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, look at your background.
What happened? You look like a professional.
Like an office.
It's really you're really an office. Well, it's funny because I've not ever been someone who, and I think some people are like this, are like, well, in order for me to work effectively, I need right? And I've always been like, I just need a place.
Yeah.
I don't need to face east at sunset on a Tuesday in order to feel like I can write something.
Right.
Like, just give me 15 minutes and don't bother me and I'll write something. Right.
Right.
So when it has come to my office space, at some point I'll have in our home, I'll have the one that we're going to build. I will have an office, a dedicated office, and it'll have I was going to put a fireplace in it, but I'm actually going to put like an old timey wood burning fireplace in it.
Right.
In the corner. So anyway, it'll be fabulous and have bookshelves and all of those wonderful things. But for now, I have a gallery of my book covers and I think they're wonderful. I'm happy to have them. It's kind of fun to see. And also I was thinking, as I was framing each one of them, the number of hours that have gone into each one of those books. They started as a blank page or as a thought, usually on a treadmill. And I'm looking at I have a whiteboard in front of me with a drop down on it. And I have another book that I outlined. I forgot all about it till I flipped over I should probably write that book.
Hurry up.
Yeah. Well, we're in a race, right? Weren't we in a race to see who was going to publish their next nonfiction book?
I don't know about a race. I do know that we were talking about.
I do believe there was a throwdown at one point during this particular conversation.
I will never race Honoree Quarter on writing and publishing a nonfiction book.
You can race me on fiction all day long because you're out of the gate, and I'm still in the barn, right? I'm still like before the Kentucky Derby. They've got the barn with all the horses. You've like run around the track a couple of times, and I'm still in the barn getting like my tail braided.
Yeah, but I'm like that horse that doesn't know where it's at. It's just kind of like dancing around like, hey, we're out on the track having fun. This is great. Yeah. And everyone's going, he's going to be glue before he knows it.
No. I've made your prediction. I have made your prediction, and I have gone to the betting window and I have put all my money on you, the author horse, just so you know. I hope
I don't make you lose your bet.
This is May 23rd, 2024 at 10:10 in the morning. And we're going to mark this day down because when I'm in front of a step and repeat for your movie, or I'm at some event where they carry you in on a pillow, and you're like
tiny little pillow.
Yeah. A little Lucas-sized pillow.
Little tassels on the ends. That's great.
Yes, I picture like 5 guys out of I Dream of Jeannie, right? Like with the big hats.
Yes.
Carrying Lucas around on a pillow.
Yes.
Like, Lucas has written his 200th book and sold his 200 millionth book. And I'm going to be like, who called it? That would be me. Yep.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep.
We can dream, can't we?
Yep.
So what have you been reading? Speaking of books.
No.
No. I won't do it.
No, I actually, that's not true. So I always manage, you find time for the things that are important. And so thankfully on my phone, I have a book called Up, The Difference Between Today and Tomorrow Is You. And it's by a gentleman named Bob Ravner, who is in my Rotary Club, and he spoke, and he comes from very humble beginnings, and he served as a career Navy man, submariner. And so I'm a few chapters into that book, and I was embarrassed to see him on Monday. I hope I don't ever make people feel like this, because he didn't make me feel like anything. I did it to myself. But when he talked about his book, I immediately went and got a copy of the book immediately. Like, buy now. That's my favorite button to push. Buy now. And then have only read maybe 3 or 4 chapters of the book. So when I saw him on Monday, of course, I come face to face to him. Of course, it wasn't a meeting where like I was in and he was in and I didn't see him. And I don't know him all that well. So hi, Bob, if you're ever watching this. I wanted to have read the book and reviewed the book so I could say I've read and reviewed the book. And I feel terrible that I just haven't had the time, even though there have been times when I have not been working, but my brain was not in the space of reading. Even I think I would rather read than do almost anything. But sometimes at the end of the day, I worked for 6 straight hours on 10 documents yesterday.
Yeah.
And when I was done, it wasn't because my brain was done necessarily. It was because my eyes said, and we're done. You are not going to look at anything else that's this distance or this distance for the whole rest of the day. And I had an event to go to. And thankfully, I was looking at people and having conversations because there would have been no more work that I did. All that to say, I will not go to another meeting where I have not finished this book. So thankfully, we have a holiday weekend.
Yes.
Coming up.
And you'll be able to read it.
And I will have some time where I plan to sit on the porch and watch the squirrels fighting.
Yes. Tennessee fighting.
Tennessee fighting. There's a little squirrel action going on this morning. And the deer and the turkeys and the birds. And we have a little cicadas, but not to make everyone in Tennessee mad, but where we are, almost no cicadas at all. And people are freaking out. We were in Nashville. They were everywhere. They were landing on us. Then we drive 30 minutes west.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting. So everywhere I have gone, 30 minutes west, 30 minutes northwest, 30 minutes southwest, southeast or east, whatever. I don't know. Directions. I'm a writer. Everywhere I've gone, there have been cicadas where I've gone 30 minutes from my house, but not here, which is so interesting. I was a little concerned about it because in the country, generally, when you have something in the city, in the country, it is multiplied. Of the creature nature.
Right.
So no, we're good. We're totally good out here. So
we are a couple of 100 yards away from the water around here. And it's not like deep water. It's kind of like, creeks. Yeah, creeks and wetlands on the backside of our development. And we have, a couple of cicadas here and there, and you can hear them, but you can hear all around us. And so if we go 1 or 2 streets over, it's crazy. You can see them all over the property, but
maybe it's just where the good people live. There are no cicadas. Where the sinners are located, they are attracted. Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
what are you reading?
I haven't been reading any nonfiction this week because I have 2 podcast episodes to record this afternoon.
Okay.
And one of the authors, I'd read their book last week. Undead Folk from Catherine Silva.
So,
Great little
and I
story.
know that name, and I don't read horror. So say hi. I'm a fan of a great author, whether I read their stuff or not. That's all.
Oh yeah, Catherine's wonderful. Yeah, she's just a great person. She owns Strange Wilds Press, and the book is just great. It's almost more of like an apocalyptic, I want to say almost like apocalyptic action, but it's definitely got grief horror all through it. So she's one of my fellow grief horror authors, and I just love her work. The book I've been reading for the other interview is Shadow of the Hidden, which is, it's called adventure horror. So it's kind of like if you've mixed Indiana Jones with some type of like horror element of curses and the bad juju in the mystical worlds, put it together. And that's written by Kev Harrison, and Kev is phenomenal. He's a great human. First of all, I met him at AuthorCon earlier this year. And Kev, if you ever see this, congratulations on hitting 10,000 followers on Twitter yesterday. So
Wow.
Just a great dude. And the story is really good. So if you like adventure and you like a little bit of darkness in your adventure, check out Shadow of the Hidden, a novel of adventure horror. It's really good.
Nice.
And I'm gonna have to ask him what his word count was on this book, because I know in the subtitle it has the word novel, but I feel like it might be just reaching the novel level. It feels more like a novella.
Yeah.
Which I love, because it's great to get right to a story and get in it and have a blast in it and get back out. So
right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, and I've been listening to Boys in the Valley from Philip Fracassi, and everyone had been telling me to check this book out.
Who's the author? I'm writing it down.
Say again.
Who's the author, so we can put it in the show notes?
Oh, Philip Fracassi.
Philip Fracassi.
Yeah,
I'm going to guess how to spell this, and you're going to correct it.
It's a Paisan name.
Please and thank you.
So really good. I'm about a quarter of the way through that one.
Are they coming on The Suspense is Killing Me, or are they coming on something else? Okay.
Yeah, The Suspense is Killing Me. So I'll have Catherine and Kev on this afternoon, and then we'll put their episodes out over the next couple of weeks. This week we're releasing an episode with Chris Panettiere, who wrote The Redemption of Morgan Bright. One of my favorite books of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gaga over that book. I love it.
Yeah, it was really good. That and Mary from Nat Cassidy were my two favorite reads of the year so far.
Okay.
So anyway, so that's what I've been reading, and reading quite a bit of in the last 24 hours. Trying to make sure I got it in my head.
I can say I'm still doing my morning reading, so I'm making my way through Arte again, and so you can see my little it's not nothing. I'm on.
Are you making another pass through that?
Oh yeah.
So you went already through it once.
Yeah. So I started it on. I write it in the front. I started it on December 26th, and I finished it on March 28th.
Wow.
And then I started it again on April 1st. Only this time I'm reading one chapter at a time, and there are hundreds of chapters. 100 chapters, hundreds of chapters. I'm not a lot. All the chapters. And sometimes they're one page, sometimes they're 4 pages. So it just goes in between there. And it's just a lesson every day. It's just a reminder of something. And then, of course, my beloved, If the House Were on Fire, Daily Stoic, gift to Kent Sanders. I mean,
that's Ryan Holiday, right?
It's Ryan Holiday. Yeah.
I was just watching videos on him. He owns a bookstore.
He does own a bookstore.
And he opened that bookstore in the midst of COVID.
He did. I think a lot of people were planning on 2020 being their year, and they put a lot of wheels in motion. And then 2020 looked exactly not at all what they had envisioned, but the wheels were already in motion.
Yeah.
And so I think it was probably one of the better businesses to start in 2020.
Right.
Because there's order fulfillment, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So speaking of books,
let's talk about the cost of books versus the ROI. That was great.
You like that? I was like,
I love it. I love it.
Come on, Lucas. Come on, Lucas.
Honoree's good at keeping me on my toes. Speaking of books, so this was probably one of the quickest titles or topics we've ever kind of discussed. It was like in our last episode, if you guys go back and watch our last episode, at the very end, in the last 3-ish minutes, we made note like, hey, we should talk about the cost of a book project or a book versus the ROI conversation, because we've had previous episodes where we talked about the ROI of a book. So we've talked about using your book to get you service related business like coaching and consulting clients. And we've talked about it for project based service/product work, like producing other products for people, helping them create a physical product, basically selling your services and products through a nonfiction book audience, right? And that the book helps establish the know, like, and trust factor. However, every time we talk about ROI, there's that first part of the equation where we talk about, well, what's it going to cost me? And then when will I reach my break-even point and then surpass that into profitability?
Right.
And it's such a funny question to have someone ask, because depending on how you publish your book and how much the types of people you hire to help you and all the things, there's a pretty decent sized window of opportunity for cost there. And you and I have a very similar perspective on what to do with that investment when you make a book. Like, don't sacrifice quality for speed. But even last month, I was talking to a neighbor of mine, a friend of mine who is writing their first book right now. We were talking about the cost of publishing those books. And they were floored when we talked about the difference between like a picture book and a nonfiction book and a fiction book. Cover design costs are different. Interior design costs are different. All these things. So I think it's appropriate when you think about when you're going to be able to get your ROI to understand like what your cost is up front, so that you can kind of understand how much should you invest in the writing and publication of the book in order to get the ROI you want, right? Because you're always telling us, everybody, all the people, that your book has a job, right?
Right.
So if when you identify that job for your book, you kind of are attaching an expected ROI to that, because that job comes with an expected amount of revenue.
Right.
So then you when you look at the cost, it's like, oh, well, there's a little bit of context and nuance there with the project. And that stops a lot of people in their tracks. And even though they can see that the ROI could be substantially higher than the cost, they still get scared of the cost up front because there's no guarantee that they'll convert to the profitability they expect. So that's kind of like in the big picture of the topic. But I think it's probably good to start talking about the cost first, don't you?
No.
Perfect. You don't like the cost, do you?
Well, here's the thing. If I just tell you the car is $150,000,
right,
or the car's $50,000, and you just go, I can't afford $150,000. I'm just going to get $50,000. Mm-hmm. There's no context around what type of car is it? What are you using the car for? It's like, or I could more appropriately use farm equipment. When we went and bought our side-by-side, if you don't know what a side-by-side is, you don't live in the country. It's a utility vehicle. Some people use it as a recreational vehicle. When you live in the country, you use it for things like carrying things around, like bags of corn for the deer and the turkeys, picking up limbs that have fallen during the storm, hauling things around. Well, when we first moved here, I was like, we don't need that. It's 20 grand. We don't need that. No, that's 10 times more than my first car. And my first car took me everywhere. It had a license plate. This thing is just $20,000. Like, what are we doing? And we couldn't live without it. We legitimately could not live effectively without some of the things. But when I just heard $20,000, I was like, well, that's stupid. I'm not spending $20,000 on that. So I think if you start with the cost of something and you don't have some context and you don't have some reference points, it's very easy to either go, well, I can just design the cover. I can read. I don't need an editor. I'll just put up an ebook on Amazon, as opposed to having an understanding of why you would invest money in it. And someone mistakenly used the word discretionary income with me the other day. Well, people who hire you to do their book for them have a lot of discretionary income. And I was like, no, they have a large marketing budget, or they understand the potential ROI on their book.
So can you explain to people that might not see the difference between those things real quick, what you mean? Like, what's the difference between discretionary funding and a budget, right? Because
discretionary is something you do for fun that's not going to make you money.
Right. It's outside of the planned budget for your business.
It's like what I said. It's like ordering room service at a 5-star hotel, or flying business class instead of first class, or instead of coach class because you can afford it, or it's taking a vacation at all, or it's buying a new car, or that's discretionary income. It's going out to eat, going to the movies, entertainment, all those sorts of things. That's discretionary income, and that comes out of your personal income. What your business dollars are earmarked for, in part, could be, I'm not going to say they should be, although they should be, could be earmarked for marketing expense. Right. How are you bringing people to your business? What are you doing? Are you advertising? Are you sponsoring events? Are you wining and dining people? All of those things are part of the marketing budget. A book is an asset, is a business asset that you can invest in that is going to, must return a large return on that investment. So when you think about, oh, it's just a cost, I'm just going to put 25,000 on Red 8. That's discretionary income. That's fun. When you say I'm going to invest 25,000, 75,000, 200,000, whatever, into creating a quality book, there should be not just an expectation of an ROI, but also a business case made for that. So I'll give you a real example. A book that I published recently for a client. When we sat down, we were having our first meeting. I said, what's the value of a client for you over a year and over a decade? Right? And he said, about 180,000 to 200,000 a year in fees come to me from my client, which would equal 1.8 million to 2 million over the course of 10 years from one client.
Wow.
Now, in his case, he cannot charge more because of his profession, which I cannot share. It's a set fee situation. So he can't say, well, now that I'm an author, I can charge, you might have heard me say in the past, you can charge 25 to 50% more. Those are more for services. That's more for coaching and speaking and consulting. Right. In his case, he's in a fixed fee situation, sure. But he has, as you do, as I do, as everyone does, competition. And a book differentiates you. So when someone presents themselves to you and they also present you with a book that has all the goods in it, which we've talked about in other videos, that's going to separate you from the pack. If there are 5 people that all do what you do, and you're the one person with a book where people can get to know you in those pages, not around you, they don't have to have a conversation with you. They're not going to feel pressure to buy from you or engage you or hire you. It's outside of that. Then the book has the expectation of a return on investment. So I said, so it makes sense for you to invest, in his particular case, $60,000 in the Better Business book. So the 15,000-ish word book. It makes sense for you to invest that, because if you get one extra client per year, that is 180,000 to 200,000 per year for 10 or more years in your business. So 1.8 million to $2 million in increased revenue over 10 years. So would you spend, Lucas, trick question, would you spend $60,000 to make $1.8 million?
Yes.
Net profit, $1.74 million from one-time investment.
Right.
And I mean, we're not going to split hairs and say, well, you have to buy the books and the books are $2, et cetera. Right. It's like, so part of the marketing plan that I put together for him was to give his book to everyone who works with everyone who could need what he has to offer. So who are the strategic partners? Give each of them 10 copies of your book and ask them to give it to people who could be clients. Because when he gets that first client and then that second client and that third client in the same calendar year that he published his book, he's going to go, wow, I now have not just a 3x return on my investment with one client. I'm going to have a 6x, a 9x, a 12x return on investment because I did this one book. So now let's go. So let's say you don't have me do the book for you. Let's just say you're doing it yourself. So now we can talk about the cost. Can I have delayed the gratification? Because I wanted to make the business case for it makes sense to do this. And this is where you have to start. It's like you have to understand what the book can do for your business and how much revenue it has the potential. Because I'm going to go, before I talk about the cost real quick, I'm going to talk about it in a different way. If you're a dog walker and you're making $15 a dog per day, and because you have a book, you can charge $16 a day, please don't publish a book about dog walking.
Unless you just really love that so much you want to write the book.
Right. But that's the thing is I cannot make the business case.
Right. Yep.
I can't in good conscience say, yes, a book is the best way for you to market your business. But if you are a highly compensated, I'm surprised Justin hasn't told me my microphone isn't on. Hold on. What's happening?
I needed to move mine so I could relax a little bit.
I saw yours and I went, oh, wait a minute.
Buckling up.
Hold on. If I'm gonna be on my soapbox, I need my late night FM DJ.
Where's the big fuzzy boom?
Thank you. Right here.
Hover right over your head.
Yeah, here we
I didn't even notice. You've got you on my monitor today instead of my headphones. You didn't make fun of my non-Princess Leia look.
I want Princess Leia in my life. So you want to make the case for actually doing the book, right? Mm-hmm. In the first place, does it make sense? And if you're a highly compensated or a well-paid professional, even if you are a coach that's making $500 a session,
right? That's
30 sessions. Okay. How many sessions do you do with someone in a year? You do 2 sessions a month. That's 24 sessions a year. So if you get one more client, you've almost broken even, but I guarantee you, unless you just publish the book and then seal up the box and put it in your storage unit and don't ever share it with anybody, you're going to develop several clients over the course of a year from your coaching business, from your book. And so even at a $500 an hour price point, you're going to recoup your investment. And then over time, you're going to make the return on investment. So it's not always a 3x in one client kind of a situation or a 10x in one client situation. Sometimes it's, if I get one client in the course of a year, it's going to pay for my investment, and everything else after that is gravy. And if you do the book right, it's evergreen content. It's going to make money for you for at least a decade.
Right.
You Must Write a Book. That one, published in 2016, is a 2 comma revenue stream over the past 8 years, and we're still going. I'm not even at 10 years yet, and I actually don't know. Let me just do a little math, and then we'll talk about the budget. Let's see.
Yeah, I was also going to bring up because you brought up You Must Market Your Book, or You Must Write a Book. Yeah. There's an opposition thinking about like, oh, well, those aren't typical. Those are atypical results. And it's like, yeah, but that shows you what the potential is. If you do it right, you market it, you hit the right niche. I mean, you want to see an example of someone that succeeds so that you can make a good argument.
That's why I did the low end. That's why I said, if you're making $500 and you get one more client and you build $12,000.
Yeah.
Right. And whatever it is.
And you might not have to be in a rush to make that profit back through a service contract. So for example, I think a lot of people think, okay, the book's out, publication date, let's just say, is the 1st of September. I've got to hurry up and get that ROI through the door on day 2, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
It's, to me, just as a service provider, it's more about getting the right quality client through that than it is a quality client.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you have to remember that your book does something that you normally don't experience with a funnel related to a lot of these service-based industries. And that is that it's so passive, right? Like your book could literally be on the other side of the world. You don't even know it's out there, which is different than ads, where you have targeted ad spend and it's doing a certain thing in a certain market and it's with a certain audience and all those things. Your book could be in anyone's hands anywhere in the world. And there's magic to that, right?
Simultaneously.
Yeah. When you and I talked about doing monetize your book with a course, one of the things that just jumped out at me immediately was, if I take the money that I put into publishing this book and I spend it on advertising, which would do better for my business? And it was almost without a doubt, or I should say it was without a doubt and almost immediate, that I recognized the strength of the book versus ad spend.
Right. And that book is evergreen and will bring business to you. Let's talk about how much we're talking about in terms of an investment. Fair? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the cost. Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the average nonfiction book is 50,000 words. 50,000 words for a nonfiction book. And so I'm going to give you the per word and then the per project for a couple of different things. So the developmental edit, if you are a first-time author, if you are a first 10-time author, if you're a first 20-time author, unless you have a doctorate or you're an attorney and you write for a living.
Right.
A highly compensated professional or compensated professional and a professional writer are on two different ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
So unless you are a writer, if you write your book, you need a developmental editor. A good developmental editor is going to about 8 cents a word. Right off the bat, we're 50,000.
Yeah, you broke up. Can you just go over those numbers one more time?
Yep. So 50,000 word book, 8 cents a word, is $4,000 for your developmental edit. Your developmental editor is going to help make sure that your book hits that hero's journey, the arc, right? Taking the reader where they started to where they want to be in the course of that book, and just make some suggestions and some corrections, things that you can do. Alternatively, you can hire a ghostwriter. That's a different conversation. And then you can avoid the $4,000 for the developmental editor. But for a 50,000 word book, you're looking at $50,000 to $75,000 to $100,000 for a good or great ghostwriter. Just FYI. Okay. Because they charge $1 to $2 a word. A ghostwriter does. Okay. So then after you've gone through the content, the developmental edit, you're going to need a content or line editor, and they're going to charge you around 5 cents a word. So now you've got another $2,500. And then once you've gone through that, then you're going to need a proofreader, and they're going to charge you between 2.5 and 4.5 cents a word. So I split the baby and I said 3.5 cents a word for a proofreader.
Okay.
And that's $1,750. So we're at just over $8,000 for the editorial portion of your book.
Right.
Now, it doesn't get scarier from here, right? We're almost done, but those are the main costs. That's where you're going to spend a lot of money. No, your next door neighbor who was an English teacher for 30 years is not a professional editor.
Or your wife who reads a lot,
or your wife who reads a lot.
Yeah.
Or yourself who reads a lot, right? I mean, even professional editors will hire professional editors to go behind them and make corrections, because after a while you are unable to see mistakes that are right in front of you. It happens to me every day. I send out my own newsletter, and then I'll get it the next morning and I'll look through it and I'll go, read that 3 times. I don't charge extra for typos. Typos in a newsletter are a different game than typos in print in a book. So we want to avoid those as much as we can. All right. So then the 50,000 word book, and at that size, you're looking at between 5 and 8 and 6 by 9 for your dimensions. So your cover is going to cost you about $2,000.
Okay.
To have a custom, well done, beautifully designed cover, it's going to cost you give or take $2,000. And you're going to be very happy that you had an expert design your cover. So no, your marketing person who designs your logo or your website is not a book cover designer.
Right.
The same thing. And when you say, well, but it's design, it's kind of the same. It's like, okay, so if you needed to have your meniscus repaired, would you go to your oral surgeon and just be like, oh, it's cutting, it's anesthesia? It's kind of the same. It's not the same at all. It seems like it might be the same if you're not a trained professional in this area. It's just not the same. So you want someone who specializes in books, in book cover design, who understands design and does beautiful work. You want your book to fit in. You want it to look like the genre that you're publishing in, and you want it to stand out with excellent design, not stand out with design that isn't appropriate to that genre or that area.
Right.
Right. So you don't want to get creative in this situation.
And I think it's a good point to make that this is nonfiction. These price points.
Yes. Well, we were just talking about nonfiction.
Yep.
Yeah.
For those that are tuning in.
Yeah. I would love for you to kind of break this down from a fiction perspective too. We should probably do a whole second thing and rename this Publishing Your Nonfiction Book.
Almost all the costs are the same with the exception of the cover.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, what's the cover for fiction?
I mean, decent covers start in the hundreds. They start at $350 to $400 and they go up. So
okay. All right.
I think it's a safe bet to say anywhere between $5,000 and $1,000 for the cover design.
Okay. And then so the interior design again is custom. And so that's another about $2,000 for a 50,000 word book. Now, just to have some comparison, for books like this, my custom designer charges $3,500 for cover and interior design. So you save $500 by having a shorter, smaller book, but right. It's still custom designed and you still get it in all of the different formats, EPUB, print PDF, Amazon print PDF, Ingram print PDF for a hardcover version. All those are different files. You need all the different files. You need the 3D images and the square image for your social media and your book cover for the audiobook. All of that should come, and it should come for one price from one designer, and you should have them do the interior and the cover also for continuity. So they've got the artwork, the fonts, right. Everything needs to be. So you're looking at about $4,000 for the cover and the interior. And then you need back cover copy. So that's the book description, the sales copy, the retail sales copy. It's all the same thing. It's what it says on the back of your book and what it says on the retail sales page. All of that is about the same copy, give or take the scroll up and buy your copy now. You wouldn't put that on the back cover of your book. So use your best judgment. Then you're going to want to buy your ISBNs because you want to make sure you own your intellectual property. And then you may want to throw in, I'm just going to throw in one more thing, which is BookFunnel. I'm a huge fan of BookFunnel, and BookFunnel delivery system for your advanced reader copies, as well as your complimentary copies that you're going to share with your prospective clients. So all of this adds up to give or take about $12,000.
Right.
$12,000, $13,000. So the top line number I'm giving you is $15,000. So if you do this yourself, because publishing on retail sites is free, they are taking a percentage of the royalties that you earn. So if you are selling an ebook, you're going to make 70%. If you're selling a print book, you're going to make between 45 and 55%, depending on what retail site you're selling it through. Now, sometimes the most challenging part of the whole entire process is the publishing part, facilitating the publishing part, coordinating with the staff that you're using, the designer, the editorial staff, et cetera, et cetera. And so I actually now have, through my office, someone available to handle those publishing services for you that I am training and have trained to do these services for much lower than I would charge to do them myself.
Right.
So if that's of interest, you can leave a comment or reach out to me directly, and I can put you in contact and provide more information about that. But you're looking at, just to produce the book, not to publish it, under about $15,000 with that developmental edit. Now, if you're a professional writer, or you write for a living in another way, you can eliminate that $4,000 for the developmental edit. But you're still going to want to budget around $4,200, $4,500 for your line edit and your copy and your proofreader.
Right.
Yeah. And so I look at then, if you're charging $500 and then you can charge $1,000, or you're charging $500 and you can charge $600 or $750, you want to do the math, because there are two different maths, plural. One, you're going to charge more for what you're already doing. And two, you're going to do what you're doing more because of your book.
Right.
You're increasing the business that you're already doing, your fee for that. And then you're going to have more revolutions. You're going to have more clients. So having more books, or having a book, is going to allow you to have more business, more clients, more customers, and you're going to be able to charge more to the customers that you have. So it's two maths.
Both the maths.
All the maths.
All the maths.
Right, yes. And so I would sit down and pencil it out. And I would say, okay, if I know I'm going to budget $15,000 for the cost of my book, and I have a timeline of a year, you're going to just say, I'm going to budget about $1,000 a month. I'm going to put $1,000 away for my book, or I'm going to repurpose $1,000 a month for my marketing. And you know who you are. You know who you are that are spending $2,500 a month on a marketing person that's doing social media reels for you. And that's maybe returning business to you, but you might just be lighting on fire. You might just be letting that money on fire and producing an evergreen asset, because once you've invested in it, you don't ever have to pay for it again unless you do it over.
That's right. That's right.
It is an asset you can continue to share and share and share. And if you deliver ebooks as complimentary books to people, the delivery is free.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so you have to think about, oh, wait a minute, I could write this. Now, fiction is a completely different animal. This is nonfiction. I'm talking about monetizing nonfiction. Fiction is a completely different animal, and a fun animal, right?
It is
fun, but a different model, a different revenue model, different monetization model. Lots of different ways to monetize your fiction. You can write it in serial, you can do movies and film and merch and right, and things like that. So fiction has the same potential upside. And the only other thing I want to say before I want you to talk, Lucas, is you don't, and we had this conversation before, when we were at backstage or in the green room, if we want to use like film technology, there's some authors that go, this is my ticket to ride. I am just going to write my book and publish it. And then I'm going to get an Airstream and I'm going to roll all over, and the money is just going to flow in, those payments from Amazon every month. Like, it's going to be raining money. I'm just going to be like, there's the money. Right. And you know what? That is absolutely going to happen. Asterisk, see fine print below. If you do all the things that are in the fine print below.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Which is like a tremendous amount of work.
Which is a tremendous amount of
work. So there's two things that you kind of queued me up on. One is an estimating method. And the other one is that discussion about royalties versus collateral income, which when I think about service contracts, that kind of work coming through your book, I look at that as kind of collateral because it's not royalties, right? And so you need to ask yourself if you're depending on royalties to judge your ROI on the book, or if you're working toward product and service sales as a collateral form of income that would meet the ROI equation, right? Yep. And the answer may be both. So you might do both, like I do with my nonfiction.
For sure.
As far as estimating goes, there's a way to estimate that I really liked learning this as a business owner when I was teaching project management, and the Project Management Institute uses this as one of their methods for estimating, and it's called 3-point estimating, and it's pretty popular in contracting for complex projects. But really what you're looking at is what's the estimate is equal to a real easy equation of what's the most optimistic outcome, what's the most pessimistic outcome, and what's the most likely. And when you can put those three numbers together and you think about it in relation to royalties, or you think about it in relation to the contracts that come through, you can do a little bit of math. And
say them again, please.
So you want to get the most optimistic estimate.
Yep.
The most pessimistic estimate.
Yep.
And the most likely. So you've got a range here of numbers instead of just thinking about like, and because what you're doing is you're looking at what's the potential outcome, right? And you can compare that to what you know your costs are going to be. So if you know your book is going to cost you $10,000, $15,000 to produce, and then you're thinking about, all right, I'm going to go ahead and budget that for production costs. Then I need to look at what my expectations are for producing an ROI on this.
Right.
The question becomes, well, I need to at least surpass my break-even point, right? Whatever that cost of the project was at the 10 or 15,000.
Right.
And then whatever I stack on top of that while I'm getting to my ROI for marketing fees and any advertising costs and all that kind of stuff, I can start to think about like, okay, well, maybe my most optimistic estimate involves landing that big dollar client for my business, right? And let's just say we cap it at one person because we've got this great high level offer in our business that $50,000 project could come in the door based off of one book sale,
right?
And one person won over. Let's say that's our most optimistic. Let's say our most pessimistic is that we get trickled royalties, a couple of bucks here and there each day. And it's not a smash hit, but it's being read regularly.
Yeah.
And for those that don't sell books, your price and the number of books that sell and who's distributing it all kind of influence how much you make in royalties.
That's right. That's right.
Right. So if you've got a book that's priced where you can make a 70% royalty off your book and you're selling it and it's moving a decent number, you break in a couple $100 or whatever a month, but you're looking at that 15,000, you're hearing the people that are pessimists, right? This is the pessimistic estimates. Like, well, I only make a couple $100 a month or $100 a month or whatever off my royalties. So it's going to take forever to earn your money back. And you're going, well, that's only looking at the pessimistic number.
Right.
What if I look at the optimistic number, which is 50 grand on one client, like you were saying? Man, it looks a lot different. Now, maybe something is in between those two. Maybe we're not like knocking it out of the park right away and we're not falling on a low royalty rate right away. Maybe we have a kind of like a most likely situation. And maybe that most likely situation is that we invest for 6 months of marketing before we land that really big client. And when you do the math that way, and the big client is still worth all that money, it's still a very optimistic thing.
Yes.
You're in a really good position. So that's because that one client is worth like 4 times your cost of that book.
Right.
You just have to do something that people freaking hate doing. You just have to put in the hard work and let it happen. It's like it's going to take some time.
Well, it's like having a child.
Right.
You think the hard work is making the baby and delivering the baby.
Right. Yes.
It's really raising the baby.
Yes.
Right. And so people go, oh, thank goodness my book is out and it's in the world. And whew, I'm so glad it's over. It's like, no. Hold, please.
Right.
Hold, please, while I check that for us.
Right.
There is a constant and never ending need to get your book in the hands of people. So even when you think you've talked about it, all you can talk about it, you've marketed it, all you can market it, there are still 8 billion people, give or take, that have never heard of you or your book.
That's right.
And today could be the day that if you do that Instagram story or you do that LinkedIn post or you have that one-on-one meeting or you go to that networking event, that you give your book to someone and they discover you and then they go, where have you been all my life? You are exactly who I was looking for.
Right. Can I just bring up something that you just said that it just really stands out to me in this industry?
Yes,
And
please.
some people are going to love me for this and some people are going to hate me for this. But, and I hear this a lot on the fiction side, and I think about it from a business owner's perspective. I view my fiction as my art and the thing I love to do and all that stuff. But if I'm going to then say I'm not in it to make money and I don't really care if it works, I just want to put my art out in the world, then don't subsequently complain that you're not making money off your book.
Oh, you're preaching right there.
Right? I mean, I see this all the time where people are like, especially on social media, because a lot of it's just presenting an image.
Yeah.
Don't ask me about ROI and costs
Right.
if you're only in it for the art.
That's right.
Right? Or you're only in it to get your message out in the world because you've got this great thing to teach people.
Yes. I shared about it on 3 times and I'm not J.K. Rowling.
Right. That's right. So, you know, it's like one of those things where it's like, if you want to treat this as your business, if you want to replace your full-time job, if you want to make this the big earner in your small business that you own, whatever the case is, you need to look at the whole thing like that.
You better invest in your book, because I have been handed books where people have invested in their books, but they invested with people who didn't really know how to craft a really well done book. So the cover is terrible, or the interior is terrible, or all of the above. So that's a kind of another discussion. Like, be careful who you hire, right? Do your due diligence.
That's right.
So there's a story that just went through my head that I will not tell. But also, do not expect to get a high ROI on your book if you do not invest in it.
That's right.
You cannot design your own cover, run it through spell check 3 times, and throw it up on Amazon without a professional copywriter writing the copy for your book, without well-chosen keywords and categories, without understanding every aspect of it. And by the way, if you're a highly compensated professional, find someone who knows what they're doing to help you with it, because there are a lot of moving pieces and parts. And interestingly, the bespoke books I do are, generally speaking, with people, they're one of 2 types of people. They're either people who have a really firm grasp and understanding the fact that they're really successful. And we had one here, right? We had Ali here. I did Ali's book. He has a really firm understanding of how long it takes him to make the money to pay for the book.
Right.
Or they are someone who has a really firm grasp and understanding of what the potential upside is, and they don't want to leave it to chance. So sometimes they can afford it because it's walking around money. It's like the money they have in the coin collector in their Maybach, right? Right. Yeah. It's like, here's a brick of money. Take this to the bank, right? Or it's someone who says, I know that I have to differentiate myself with a well-done book, and I'm going to invest in it. Whether it's with me or it isn't, you have to invest in this list of things that I told you with professionals who know exactly what they're doing, because it's very easy to do it ineffectively and a bit of a challenge to do it effectively, to do it most effectively.
Right.
So the people who come at me and they go, oh, you know, I'm just going to do a little ebook. I don't really need to, you know, I'm fine. Everything's fine. It's like, it's not fine. And people know the difference. And there have been a number of times where people have said, I've recommended somebody, and then I got a copy of their book and I read it and I went, oh, they're doing themselves a disservice with a poor quality book. So do yourself a favor and either invest in it, right? Use your resources to invest, resources you have to invest, save up to pay for it, or don't do it at all. So you must write a book thing, just ignore that altogether. If you're not willing to invest in it, it's like the old saying, it's better to be thought a fool than to speak up and remove all doubt. Right? It's better to remain a non-author than to author poorly.
That's a good point. It is a little frustrating for me, and it's also heartbreaking, because you know that they really mean well and they want well, but they don't do well. And it's, you know, even today I was looking at, I mean, it was like I mean, it wasn't a BookBub. It was like an e-reader news or something. I got one of my daily book ads dropped in, and I was like, wow, this cover is terrible.
I know.
And it stood out so.
But also it's a bummer because someone,
someone wrote that book.
Yeah,
that takes a lot of work.
It does.
And so even
writing a crappy book takes a lot of work.
Yes, even writing a crappy book takes a lot of work. So do yourself a favor and give it a chance to live by investing in it. And
give it a chance to live and to work for you, to make an impact, right? It's like sometimes someone is going to read your book and you're never going to hear from them. They are never going to connect with you, but you will have changed their lives. For every person who reaches out to you and says, I mean, I tried to reach out to an author and tell him he changed my life, and I got the autoresponder, "You are dead," to him. He does not read emails. Right? He is too popular to receive email from you, right? So for every person who has something nice to say, and if you love an author and their work, send them an email, send them an Instagram message, something like, let them know, because those are always awesome. Getting those types of messages are always awesome. All this to say is when you are an author, a lot of people are going to read your book and never say anything to you.
Right.
I run into people and they'll go, "Oh, I read your book 5 years ago and it made such a difference. And thank you so much." I'm like, "You've been living with this for 5 years? Like, I'm not hard to find. Send me an email." Right?
That's good.
So all of that to say, do it well or don't do it, but do it and do it well is the message that we're trying to give you. But take the time that it takes and take the money that it takes. Because even if you get all the way to the end and then you realize, oh, my cover could be better, or, oh, I have some more work to do on this, what's 3 or 4 more months?
Yep.
In the overall scheme of life, generally nothing, right? So just take the time that it takes and do it right. I'm always excited. With the minute I have an idea, I want it to be done yesterday. And then I have to slow my roll and turn off the jet engines and take the time that it takes to painstakingly go through it over and over and over again until it's perfect, or as close to perfect as it can possibly get. Typos are free.
Yeah. Go ask your mentor and your coach if you should do it in a rush. I have that conversation at least twice a year. I'm like, "Hey, I want to do this on this date." And they're like, "No, dude, no. Please don't. You're better than this. Do better than this." Okay.
Yeah.
So guys, if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, please do that. We come at you guys live every Thursday at 11 Eastern. Wait.
Yep.
Yes. I had to make sure I was in the right time zone. 11 Eastern, 10 Central.
Who's on first?
What's that?
Who's on first?
Yeah. Who's on first?
What's happening? What is it?
We appreciate you guys tuning in. We would love for you guys to go visit empirebuildersmasterclass.com. Check out our author success bundle. And I could say that I'm pretty impressed with how effective that's been for me, because that's kind of a combination, a bundle of courses that helped me get off the ground.
You are a bundle of author success, Lucas.
That's Honoree wins dad joke of the day. There you go. So make sure you guys go check out the empirebuildersmasterclass.com, and you can find more dad jokes there, just riddled all through the courses. So, all right, guys. Honoree, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you for asking, and for your wisdom as well, obviously.
All right. We'll see you next